I've got too many tabs open, I'm already confused.
The YouTube.
Hello everybody, here we are at Champion Motorsports for the VWSC 1991 Autopolis race, and we'll be joining you live with broadcast commentary in a couple minutes. In the meantime, please enjoy watching the drivers as they get themselves ready for qualification.
on board with John Houillard. Houillard's going to commit. He comes off to the inside. There's no one, and he's going to finish. He tried his best. How did he catch it? John never stopped.
Timing screen that's doing its own thing here. Well, that's okay.
There we are. I think, yeah, I've just been working with some difficulties.
So you can
There
see
we are.
now
All
a lot of the
back,
drivers
working things.
and it seems to be that a lot of the drivers are working their way now into their pit boxes here to, as we said before, figure out exactly where they need to stop to ensure that they're not penalised at any point, because of course that is a thing that can happen here, and that's something that you don't want to happen around here either, because it looks to be the pit lane here is quite long here as well, so it's a very long time. You have to be cruising at around between 60 and 80 kilometers an hour. That's the last thing you want to be doing, especially if you're in a title fight here, as some of our drivers are actually in as here today. So a lot of things here to sort out before the start of a race. Of course, this is the warm-up before the final race of the season. We've already set the field up. It will be Ahmed Abdullah on the front row of the grid, and he'll be sharing that front row of the grid with none other than one of our championship protagonists, Dan Kirby. Ludwig Askenis did a stellar last lap and put everyone else there on display, because he went purple in sector 1, went quickest in sector 2 for himself, and then put himself third after almost starting on the third row of the grid. So he bumped himself up by 3 positions on the very last lap of the race. Qualifying, not the race. Getting too excited here myself. So it looks to be some cars have already made their way onto the track already. I can see that we have Adrian Rice and Jason Whited made their way on track. No, it's not Jason White.
I
Sorry,
think
Ludwig.
that's them needing to get around because they couldn't get to their pit box without causing themselves difficulties. So they've got to get around and do a lap so they can check their pit box out.
So that makes sense why we only have a few that have actually taken to the track now, because showing us that there's a few other drivers that shouldn't be there. Saying that Ludwig Askenis is working his way around the track. Now, interestingly enough, it's also showing by timing screen that Ludwig Askenis will start ahead of Ben Borman, although I don't think that's the correct qualifying sheet that I have in front of me at the moment. I just think that's its warm-up sheet that it is showing me at the moment here instead. As a few more drivers will take it around the track to slot themselves into their grid positions for during this warm-up session. And as you said, for drivers like Ben Borman and Ross Smith, this is very crucial now, because of course the last thing they want to happen is a pit stop violation at any point, because they don't want to miss it or overshoot it or anything like that, because they could cost themselves a championship, and that's really not something either of them want to do here today at Autopolis.
The track is definitely having some technical difficulties, as we may have some track issues with the timing screens. It seems that events out of your control.
That's okay. This screen needs to warm up as well anyway, so it will sort itself out after it's done some stretches. It would be good to go for the race. Here's Paul J. Venter. He's distracting himself in the pit box, just settling in on where he needs to be. Risto Kroppi working his way around in the Peugeot 905. Beautiful livery as well, like sort of the actual livery that the Peugeots ran all those years ago as well. It still looks absolutely stunning to this day. Simple yet effective is always the best thing to do. Simplicity is always nice. Minimalism is always the best, isn't it? As Ahmed Abdullah, the pole sitter here today, I think he's upset both Ben Borman and Ross Smith by taking that all-important pole position away from the two of them, and he's certainly going to make those two work for a win and points as well, because of course with both himself and Dan Kirby in the mix in the top 5, both of them could be taking away valuable points from both Ross Smith and Ben Borman.
Also the aspect that Ben was hoping to have a clear field ahead of him. He runs very, very smoothly and really takes advantage of the clear air. Having to fight with a driver or two ahead of him is going to disrupt his plan.
So that's certainly going to be an issue going down towards turn 1, isn't it? Because, of course, he'll be having to deal with Ahmed Abdullah and a fair few others as well. At least if he was out in front, he could just slam his foot on the accelerator and go as fast as he can towards that first corner break as late as he dares as well. But, of course, with a field of cars behind him, plus one extra in front of him, he's going to have to switch up his strategy here completely when we get started today. So just over 10 minutes remaining in this warm-up session here for the Virtual World Sports Car Historic, the 1991 season, as it comes to a close here today. As you said, it's hard to believe this is the final race of the season. We started all those months ago, all the way back in February, and it's all come down to the very last race for at least 4 of our champions to be crowned, that is. 2 have already been crowned. And that is the Pro drivers and the AM teams have already been secured, but the other 4 titles, including the Purist team, the Purist driver, and the AM team and AM driver and Pro teams need to be sorted out. We're missing a category, so we've got Purist team and Champion to sort out, or driver to sort out. Then we've got the Purist. Purist is done. Then it's the Pro team that needs to be sorted out because the Pro drivers are being crowned. And then we have the AM drivers that is to be determined, with the AMS team already locked up. So yeah, Lucky Strike Mazda Racing have already sorted out that there completely. And Jake Sanson now joins us in the booth here at the end, the second half essentially of warm-up here. Jake, you've missed a very interesting quali session here with Ben Borman being dropped off the front row of the grid on the very last lap here in what could be what is actually, in all fairness, a championship deciding race here around Autopolis, where things are going to get very, very interesting.
It certainly sounds like it's all queued up for a fantastic end to the season. Hello to everybody. Apologies for my absence in recent weeks. It's been a very tough end to the season for me for many different reasons, which are too long, technical and boring to go into here. But it's wonderful to be back with you for the VWSC Historic 1991 Championship finale. Ben Borman, obviously, as you just mentioned, knocked off the front row on a day when he can pretty much kiss his chances goodbye unless things turn out his way in the final reckoning. But Ross Smith pretty much in the box seat now. All he has to do is basically finish strong and the job is done. But obviously, as you mentioned as well, in the Purist category, everything is still relatively open. In Pro, obviously, we know the champion is Wouter de Bruin, and so it's going to be an interesting challenge for him just to have a nice race of fun, and where better to do that than Autopolis. This is a really challenging circuit. You're going to get to see drivers pushing to the limit. It is a circuit that does catch drivers out quite a lot, so you're going to have some interesting fluid moments, particularly this section of the course where it dips down and then climbs back up again through the S's. You're really trying to balance the car as it comes through these S sections. And it is a fantastic circuit, and we'll see some interesting moments out there in the finale.
Yeah, we look forward to the start of the race here as well, which is now 7.5 minutes away before, as we said before, that we are going to conclude the race here, the season actually as a whole, not just the race. So Ahmed Abdullah will start on the front row of the grid. Adrian Rice here is just put a time that is 1/8 of a second slower than Ahmed Abdullah, so he's starting to dice it up there at the front end of the field. However, this is not qualifying, so he won't be on that front row of the grid, so he won't be able to show what he can do from that position. But of course he is in the Pro category, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, he is. He's one of a handful of Pro drivers that we have here. The smallest field we have is the AM drivers. We only actually have 3 drivers participating today in the AM category. John Mayer is here, Stephen Miller is the other one, Philippe Henrique is another driver. Now, interesting enough, it is John Mayer and Eric Moyne that will be battling out for the top honours in the AM category. However, it appears to be Eric Moyne is not here, so that means by default Mayer should be crowned champion no matter what. as he comes into this round with more points than Eric Moyne, because he should be leading the championship. Yes, he is. He's leading by 9 points, and with Eric Moyne not here, yes, he should be crowned champion. So that is quite interesting. So I think that's done and dusted by the looks of it. So we only technically have now 2 champions to decide. No, 3 champions, sorry, because we've got Purist team, Purist and Pro teams to sort out. Seems to be both of the AM categories is technically sorted out, but we can conclude that later on once the race is finished here at Autopolis. Okay, we have, as we said, 70 to 80 minutes of racing to go. Once that starts, will be 50 laps. It will say 51, but of course the first lap is included as the formation lap. So we'll be racing for technically 51 laps, but it'll be actually 50 laps of green flag racing to signify the entire race. As it looks to be, the grid is being sorted out, and we'll of course talk you through who is where as the drivers start to drop into position. Not drive in position, but drop into position. The joys of racing online. We can just drop them. So it'll be Ahmed Abdullah and Ben Borman, one of the 2 championship protagonists here. At least one of them will be starting on the front of the grid. For Ross Smith, though, he's got 3 cars in front of him if he wants to get anywhere close to Ben Borman before the first corner, because, of course, Askinis is in between him, as is Dan Kirby. And Askinis with that stellar last lap as well. He did in qualifying to put himself on the second row of the grid in 3rd. Which is a great way to start the final race here for Askinis. Final cars now being put into position. The formation lap now officially underway as Ahmed Abdullah leaves his starting box. So it will be Ahmed Abdullah and Ben Borman who will share the front row of the grid. It's showing that Dan Kirby is tumbling down. I'm wondering if Dan Kirby's in the session, because it's showing him down in 7th. No, he's climbing his way up, so he is here. So we'll just wait for that to sort itself out. But it should be Ahmed Abdullah and Ben Borman who will share the front row of the grid, with Askinis and Dan Kirby sharing row number 2. Ross Smith will share the 3rd row of the grid with Magnus Dahlgren. And we've got Corpy and Walter De Bruyn sharing row number 4. Brian Hall and Adrian Rice will share the 5th row of the grid in 9th and 10th respectively, with Tom Lane and Jason Whitehead sharing row number 6. Niall Bullion and Stephen Miller will share the 7th row of the grid, with George Angelidis and PJ Venter sharing the 8th row of the grid. John Mayer and Gilles Lalande will share the 8th row of the grid, and Philippe Henrique appears to be starting from the pit lane here, Jake. So he's got a lot of work cut out for him here as you're about to get underway here for the final race of the Virtual World Sports Car historic 1991 season. This is going to be exciting.
It's not an ideal situation to go out of the pit lane, but obviously here at Autopolis, it is one of those circuits that spits drivers off the racetrack quite frequently, so you will get a bit of an interesting balance from the competitors out there on the course. But Ahmed Abdallah obviously hoping to have a good run. Ben Borman in the Nuki Monsters Peugeot hoping to continue his strong form.
So apologies for that, because Jake may have some slight connectivity issues as we're now winding down the formation lap here before the start of the race. So Ahmed Abdullah will be the man in front of Ben Borman. But Ben Borman doesn't like it when there's a car in front of him, especially on the opening lap here of the race. So let's see what he can do, because here we come. We're about to start the final race of the Virtual World Sports Car Historic, the 1991 season. Are we good to go? We creep ever so closer now to the start-finish line, and we are racing now for the final time in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, the historic 1991 season, down towards turn 1 for the first time. And it's a good start from Ahmed Abdullah and Ben Borman, because they've already managed to gap Askinis already here from the green lights. And we're through now into the first sector officially for the first time. As I said, a good start from the 2 already. No interesting dive bombs anyway, but of course for Ben Borman, he needs to keep all 4 tyres on the tarmac if he wants to secure a championship here, and he needs Ross Smith to finish 7th or lower currently at the moment to ensure that he is victorious at the end of these 50 laps. However, 50 laps of racing, at least 2 pit stops to be sorted out here. This is going to be one that we cannot figure out who is going to be the winner at the end of this. This is going to be interesting.
Kirby's made a very good start. He's already right in behind Askanis. Looks to be trying to challenge him there for 3rd position. Smith and Dahlgren having a very good run of it as well, as we watch Kirby trying to get closer to the tail end of Askanis. They work their way through the right-hander down at the bottom of the hill, and they will trot themselves back up the climb here through the S's. Always an easy place to go off on the first lap. And you can see already that Dan Kirby is desperately trying to stop the Mazda from washing out as he goes through the S's. The car is already starting to slide. It's got a reasonably good handle on it, but these are the corners on the circuit where it's likely to snap away. He's got a good run on Askanis. He just can't commit too early to make that bold move for the position as they come off the final turn. That last corner flick, he's actually got a decent run on Askanis, and you can see that Abdallah and Borman are already 3 seconds clear of Askanis. But watch Kirby. Kirby's got an opportunity here. He might get his run up towards turn 1. Around the outside, he's going to go the long way, and he will have plenty of opportunity. That was a little bit weak from Ludwig Askanis in terms of his bravery factor. He didn't want to do anything too silly on the opening lap. And it looks to me as though Dahlgren has managed to get up alongside Ross Smith as well. He's going to try and go the long way round. Ross Smith has more to lose than Dahlgren, so Dahlgren picks him off easily.
Ross Smith sends him down to 6th position here. That's not exactly what he wants to be, but however, he is still within that bracket. Then if the race were to finish on the 3rd lap of the race, which of course it won't be doing anytime soon, he will still be champion because he still has enough points to cover that championship, that point deficit that he's losing out to Ben Borman at the moment. So Ben Borman is now 4 cars ahead of him. Well, technically 5 of this one, so if you include Ben Borman himself, of course you want to get past him to ensure he's scoring maximum points over Borman. But it looks like now Brian Hall coming under pressure from that is behind him. That's Adrian Rice, by the looks of it. That's tucked in behind him for the time being, who's desperately looking for a way through as well here. He wants to score some points in his weekend in the final race here of the season as well. And then we got, in front of them, we got Walter De Bruyn. A little bit further up the road is Walter De Bruyn as well, kind of actually in between the 2 cars here. Of course, as I said before, he's already settled his championship, so he's just here to have a good time, just to keep on his toes, prepare himself for next season. The new best time of the race here, Ahmed Abdullah, a 1:31.900 as he's gone purple through, set to 1 that time round. He's 1.1 seconds ahead of the Ben Borman, driver number 46 at the moment. And it's further down, it's already 4 seconds to the good of Dan Kirby. Is Ben Borman already? That's quite significant already in the opening stages of the lap. It looks to be Dan Kirby is sort of acting as some sort of a rolling blockade here, as he is, well, essentially bringing the field together, but he's also slowing them down at the same time. He is catching up a little bit, however, he is dropping back at the same time. This is an interesting strategy that Dan Kirby has here. He doesn't seem to be going all out here in his first part of the race, so the first half of this 80-minute race. But why would you want to do this so early is the real question of what Dan Kirby's doing. Here's Askanis at the moment. He's under pressure from Magnus Dahlgren, who's looking to get a move on with this race as they lean on each other going through the corner there. Magnus Dahlgren, probably not the cleanest way to go through on your opponent, but a move is a move, and he's off on his way because that Magnus Dahlgren car looks to be pretty fast here at the moment. And that is, of course, from the Porsche 962C, one of the preferred cars as well here this weekend, along with the Jaguar. Ross Smith not being able to do the same thing that his the car that started alongside him is doing at the moment. As Ross Smith actually is going past. Now, is that Ludwig Askanis that's gone down? Yes, it is. So Ross Smith has managed to find a way through, or has he? As he shuts the door there on Ludwig Askanis's, and now tries to take on Magnus Dahlgren. However, there's 1.8 seconds separating the 2 of them, so it's going to be quite some time before he catches up and takes that position away, if he can do that, because it seems to be Magnus Dahlgren is on rails here today.
It's pretty perfect for him, isn't it? P4 at the moment and really looking quite solid. But Kirby and Dahlgren have made good work of Smith and Askinis. Askinis slipping away over gradual time, and even Corpy in 7th position seems to have good measure on Wouter de Bruin. I think that because the pressure is off de Bruin, do not be too surprised to expect to see him charging his way back through to the top 5. He hasn't got a single amount of pressure on him at the moment, as we watch Risto Corpy in the Peugeot 905, but de Bruin just enjoying himself out there. Why would you bail out of the season in the final round? You want to showcase that you were there because you meant to be. You turned up. You were there on merit. So for Wouter de Bruin, he's just out there to enjoy the circuit, enjoy the car one last time this season. And it would not surprise me at all to see him in the top 5 by the time this race stops moving, because he's going to be there to take on the battle. And this is a circuit that really blends to Wouter de Bruin's driving style as well. He can really attack these apexes and really push his way around. He comes off the final turn, and you can see a little bit of a twitch there from Kirby and Dahlgren as into the pits. Now that is going to be Askinis, isn't it? Is that Askinis coming in, or is that Ross Smith?
Didn't quite catch who it was that was coming to the pit lane. It's Brian Hall, by the looks of it, that's coming to the pit lane in the number 44. Just keeping an eye on, yes it is, and that seems to be a rather early pit stop as well. Or is that a penalty that Brian Hall has had to serve? Because that was quite quick for a pit stop in Molyneux.
Was indeed a penalty. If you saw he was outside his pit box, he had a stop and hold from the previous race.
So that makes sense. So he's coming to serve that at the opening stages here. So that's going to put him in a deficit. Thank you, Matthew, for the update there. So that's unfortunate for Brian Hall. Now, I've just been keeping an eye on the Magnus Dahlgren car. It seems to be Sector 1 and Sector 2 is where he's gaining the most amount of time. However, on the other side of it, he's actually losing time in Sector 3. He's losing between 2 and 3/10 of a second every lap in that third sector. So he's going to have to start to get his head in the game if he wants to make more moves here. However, he is still bringing that gap down. It is now under a second between himself and Dan Kirby here for the time being. And actually, it's down to less than 5/10 of a second. And he's catching fast here as well, is Magnus Dahlgren. And there he is indeed. He's all over the back of Dan Kirby. Now, Dan Kirby is not going to make this easy at all. And it seems to be Dan Kirby is cutting a lot on the inside there through the corners. And let's see what they can do down towards turn 1. Can Dahlgren flank to the inside? Or can he fake a move for Dan Kirby here? Or Magnus Dahlgren even? No, not quite. He's too far back there to make a move. And of course, it's going to be a tough ask actually to get past Dan Kirby here for Magnus Dahlgren. He's going to have to really work hard here, and I think what he's going to do is he's going to use up more of his car just to pass Dan Kirby. So this might work. It might work in the favour of Ross Smith at some point, because he's going to start closing up as well. But he is 6.3 seconds back from the rest of the field. These two are 7.8 seconds back behind Outl and Ben Borman, and that just shows the gap already at the very start of this race.
Still we tick our way through. Magnus Dahlgren really starting to eat into that advantage of Kirby now. Because Dahlgren, again, is one of those drivers who's not really in a situation where he's got anything to lose here, so he can just get good at this car and just let it flow. Yellow flags. Wouter de Bruin seems to be dropping back. So Wouter de Bruin, it looks as though, has had an incident. Now, that's an interesting one, because he's suddenly down in 10th position. He was in P7, mixing it with the likes of Askinis and Corpy. So Wouter de Bruin has actually slipped back to P10. That's worth getting another look at if we have the opportunity. But certainly Wouter de Bruin in the Porsche has had a big washout there by the look of it, and now finds himself down. So let's see if we can pick out what happened to Wouter de Bruin as we watch him there on the way through. This might be after the incident, looking at it. I'm going to try and see what happened. Yeah, this is continuing on the rest of the incident, because he's got a Nissan in front of him and behind him, and I'm fairly sure those are the places that he lost naturally. So I don't think we're going to get any information from that, sadly. But Wouter de Bruin has definitely dropped it while he's out there in the top 10, and that's put him back to P10. So backs to the wall a little bit for Wouter de Bruin. No pressure, but he's kind of cost himself some time.
Enough as well, we're down to 18 cars as well. Didn't see what exactly happened to Philippe Henrique, but it looks like he's DNF'd as per the timing screen that we have in front of us. So we're down, unfortunately, to 18 cars here. Now this is good news actually for the AM category driver, John Mayer, because now he doesn't have to worry about finishing third or better, because he will finish either second or better, which means he will secure the title in the AM category here today. So that is fantastic news for John. However, not great news for Philippe Henrique, especially in the last race of the season. Definitely not how you want to end it here at all at Autopolis in the Virtual World Sports Car historic 1991 season. Here, so there you can see on the left hand side of your screen, you will see the timings and the gaps of everybody. Philippe Henrique there, unfortunately, with that red DNF there, and that is not the way that he'd like to finish this season at all. 3.1 seconds there was a gap between Ahmed Abdullah and Ben Borman. Then it's a further 8.8 seconds between Dan Kirby. And what's happened to Magnus Dahlgren? Because Magnus was, well, 0.3 of a second behind Dan Kirby, and is now all of a sudden he's 9.5 seconds adrift from Dan Kirby. So it appears to be Dahlgren may have pushed a little bit too hard in the first 8 laps of the race here, because he's lost significant amount of time while watching the replay there. Now, I wonder if you can find out what exactly happened to Magnus Dahlgren. Now, these are the two that closed in together. Now, I do wonder if that's the overall time between the race leader and not the gaps in between the two cars, because that makes more sense. Because that gap would be still around.
That is leader gap, just to give you an example where the field is. We'll be back to the gaps between drivers in a second.
Thank you, Matthew, for the update. So yes, it's not Matthew Dahlgren that's had an issue. That is just the gaps between all of the cars and the race leader. Thought something happened there to Dahlgren already on the opening stages of the lap here, as he tries desperately to find a way past Dan Kirby, and he's been trying to do so the past 3 laps already. And as you can see, it's a very, very difficult task here to pass Dan Kirby anywhere in any form of Virtual World Sports Car Championship racing, because we've seen him do it as well in the 2022 season. He put on an absolute clinic week in and week out, and he's really showing what he's made of here, despite having one of the slower cars on the straightaways here. Very quick through the corners is that Mazda 787B. However, when it comes to the straights, it really struggles, and it seems to be that Peugeot is struggling quite a fair bit to find a way past that Mazda as well.
This is going to be tight between the two of them, and check out the battle we've got going on further back. We've got Lane, Whitehead, Corpy and Wouter de Bruin along with Rice. So all 5 of these guys separated by just a few tenths. This is going to be about who's got the mentality and who's got the tenacity to run in the pack without causing themselves too many headaches. Lane there in P7, a little bit of dust kicked up, and a little bit of a run wide there as well from Wouter de Bruin as he tries to make progress. This is going to be Jason Whitehead's opportunity. He knows it. He's got a chance down the main straight. He's got the inside line. He doesn't need to push this too hard. Whitehead's going to commit, but Lane round the outside is not going to give him the satisfaction. So Lane holds him at the apex. Whitehead's still got alongside him. So this will surely be Jason Whitehead for the next right-hander. This will be job done. Nicely handled, although again, Lane drives around the outside, commits back for the inside line. Whitehead continues to hold him. They're just enjoying a side-by-side battle. They've been now level with each other for the last 6 corners, and finally Jason Whitehead gets the move done.
Which is very interesting from Tom Lane, because we predicted that he may be one of the only drivers that could actually do a one-stop strategy here, but of course with that tense battle that he just had, he's used up a lot of his car, so that means he's going to have to do a 2-stop strategy here today. But he's sticking with him as well, and he's holding up the field behind him as well. There's the Peugeot 905 tucked in behind him with Corpy, and Walter de Bruin just behind him as well, looking for a bit of redemption. And then right at the tail end there is Adrian Rice mixing it up as well in this 4-car battle, as Jason Whitehead now escaping up the road, and it seems to be Tom Lane kind of slowing down here a little bit, almost getting it a bit loose there in front of the Peugeot. 2 wheels off the grass, kicks up some dirt, but hangs onto the position, almost into a drift there. He actually was into a drift there through the S's, but still manages to keep all 4 pointing in the right direction. Although that Peugeot 905 of Adrian Rice is saying, "Come on, man, let me through. I'm much quicker than you are." But Tom Lane making that Porsche 962C as wide as possible. As Walter de Bruin looks on the inside here, rubs up against, and into the wall goes Walter de Bruin. De Bruin there tried to make a very bold move on the inside, and of course that's cost him a lot of time. It's a good thing he's already wrapped up that championship, Jake.
Well, I was not expecting Wouter de Bruin to make mistake after mistake after mistake after winning the title. But clearly, Walter de Bruin was never meant to win this one. Now we're going to look at a replay of it, I think. So this is Walter de Bruin coming off the final turn. And look, the back end is already getting a little bit loose. Now, he's gone for an overtaking move. He's gone right, but then he's cut back across. And unfortunately, that's Walter de Bruin's own mistake there. I'm afraid there's absolutely no question about that one. He's pulled across to the racing line. He hasn't realised that he hasn't quite managed to overtake his opponent. And I'm afraid Walter de Bruin, very much the architect of his own demise there.
Simply just cut his nose off there completely. Just didn't check his mirrors at all. And it's got quite a difficult car to not spot there in your rear view mirror. But unfortunately, Walter de Bruin there smacks the exit of the pit lane. Continues on, but sure enough, he will have some damage to that car as well. So that car will definitely be ailing. So no doubt we might see him come into the pit lane much earlier than expected. So if we're looking at sort of a two-stop strategy, if we have 50 laps to race here, we may start seeing the first pit stops start soon enough here at Autopolis. Again, tyre degradation here is incredibly high around this Japanese circuit. Fuel management playing a key role as well here in this last race weekend of the season of the Virtual World Sports Car Historic 1991 Championship here. Of course, plenty of championships on the line, including the one for both of the Purist categories, for both the driver and the teams. Here we're looking at Ben Borman, who is caught up to Ahmed Abdullah. So Ahmed Abdullah's had some uncharacteristic mistakes somewhere, because the lead battle was a lot larger than this not too long ago. It has now come down to just 0.4 of a second between our top two, and this is very crucial for Ben Borman, because of course he wants to finish as far ahead as Ross Smith as humanly possible. However, if he is in the lead of the race and he crossed the line in the lead, Ross Smith needs to finish 7th or lower to ensure Ben Borman walks away with the championship. But at the moment, the championship swing is currently in the hands of Ross Smith for the time being. That is until we complete at least half race distance. Oh, we've got a car off in sector 2 by the looks of it. Now, that was a car that was on the exit of the corner, sorry, sector 1 actually, there was. I couldn't quite catch who it was. Another car's gone off as well by the looks of it, just in front of Walter de Bruin, or was that Walter de Bruin actually that went off there? Here's John Mayer. He is currently leading the AM category, and his closest rival not here today. He needs to finish 3rd or better in his class, but he is only one of 3 drivers in the class here today, and his championship rival not here to race against him to try and take that victory away. And with Philippe Henrique out of the race, it looks to be that John Mayer may have already wrapped up the race, wrapped up the championship before we elapse the 10th lap of the race here completely. Risto Corpi all over the back of Tom Lane. And it looks to be Tom Lane now, unfortunately, dropping down the order now. I wonder if this is a strategy, actually, from Tom Lane's side here, because, of course, as we said before, of all the drivers that can do a race on a one-stop strategy, and we've seen him do this before as well, and finish in the podium finish position, Tom Lane probably is the only man in the field that will be able to do this on one stop. So I wonder if this sort of period of slowing down is strategy here. Of course, it's a bit of an interesting strategy because he's losing valuable time, and he'll lose valuable time as well with this strategy of one pit stop if he's doing it. But he is playing now the cork of the bottle at the moment, because behind him is Risto Corpi and Adrian Rice, who are both desperately trying to find a way through, because of course they're like, no, I'm doing a two-stop strategy, I'm quicker, let me through. But Tom Lane is saying, no, I don't think so, my 962 is as wide as a truck here. Niall Bolian is into the pit lane for the first time, so as predicted, this is sort of now the first pit window that we're going to see here at Autopolis, and I think this is where we're now going to start seeing over the next course of 3 to 5 laps, where we see the first lot of cars come in to do their pit stops here at the Autopolis. But for Tom Lane, I really wish we could get an inside perspective of what his strategy is, because he always has a very different strategy to everybody else here.
I don't think we're going to find out what that is until after the race, when all of the secrets finally come out on Discord afterwards. Risto Corpi trying to go on the inside of Lane. That'll do. Holds him off there, so that's nicely handled. So he manages to continue to commit. Now Risto Corpi going the long way round for the left-hander, and he's going to sail it round. Actually chops across. Goodness me, Risto Corpi going for the overtaking move, and is out to make absolutely 0.0 friends out there on the course. Risto Corpi wants to make sure that he wins this race by stealth.
Yeah, Macklin got all wrong as well for him as he cut the numbers of Tom Lane. But Tom Lane now settles into 9th position ahead of Adrian Rice. As Venter now is in the pit lane as well, in 17th position overall. So pit lane may start to get a lot busier than it has been so far in the race. As now Adrian Rice will have to find a way through Tom Lane. Tom Lane getting it all sideways as well not too long ago, but managed to keep all 4 wheels pointing in the right direction. As here is Jason Whitehead, who is currently all over the back of Askinis. Askinis with that stellar last lap as well in qualifying to put himself 3rd fastest. Now under pressure from a seasoned veteran, Jason Whitehead. Tries to break the toe for Whitehead as well, but Whitehead follows him through now down towards turn 1. Does he look for a move on the inside? Nope. Follows Askinis through, thinks better of it. We'll have to try again for the next sequence of corners to see if he can find a way through. He stays right behind him here, trying to spook Askinis here as much as he can in his Nissan. Askinis in the 962C Porsche. The preferred car of choice here this weekend, along with the Jaguar XJR. Interesting to note that the Jaguar is one of the favourites here as well. And here is back to the lead battle of Ben Borman and Ahmed Abdullah, still separated by 0.6 of a second. And of course, this will be frustrating for Ben Borman as well, because he's thinking to himself, I need to get through. Ahmed, let me through. I need these points, and I need Ross Smith to finish 7th or lower. Of course, he's unaware for the time being, unless he's listening to the stream or has live timing on his screen as well, that Ross Smith is in 5th position for the time being. And of course, we are approaching half race distance. Well, about 10 laps to go before we actually hit that mark, but it seems to be it is coming sooner rather than later. It's coming up quite fast as well. So this is where Ben Borman needs Ross Smith to have an issue. The gap is 15 points between them, but however, with the points that are currently being scored by Ross Smith, it is championship in the Purist category to Ross Smith, not Ben Borman currently at the moment, even though Ben Borman is further up the order, currently running in 2nd place, still trying to find a way past that Sauber, the Ahmed Abdullah Sauber Mercedes C11. Now, I'm not sure if he's actually in that car at the moment, because that's what it says on my screen right now. That looks awfully Porsche 962C-esque in front of him. Is that Peugeot as Ben Borman looks around the outside, but cannot find a way through. As again, Abdullah keeps that door firmly shut, and again it looks to me that he gives him a slight opportunity to Borman, and Borman is about to take it, and Ahmed Abdullah just says, nope, you're not coming through just yet, you're going to have to work, you're going to have to earn this victory, and you're going to have to nab it from me right at the end here. As Ludwig Askinis unfortunately seems to be having an issue as he's falling down the order. Oh, and he's had contact. I think there's Adrian Rice he's had contact with as well. And that has put him at a major deficit, because now he's down to 10th position after his stellar qualifying performance. And that was a replay of the incident as to why Askinis is that far down the order now. So he is now he's still inside the top 10, just ahead of Brian Hall. Unfortunately, not battling for 3rd any longer. Got a brief yellow there in sector 1. Seems to be sector 1 is pretty hot for those yellow flags as well. Successfully laps 16 minutes of green flag racing here. Of course, it does say 51 laps of 50. That is, of course, because the first lap counts. As despite it being a formation lap, actually counts towards the total laps that will need to be completed. But it is actually 50 laps of racing here. As Ben Borman still can't find a way past Ahmed Abdullah at all. But now the good news is he's actually coming up on the back marker traffic, so he's going to need this car in front of him to play in his hands. Now I wonder if that's Niall Bullion that is just in front of them for the time being. No, it's Paul J. Venter's car actually that should be just in front of them for the time being. And they've got through quite fast as well, so not good news for Ben Borman. He would like to have had Ahmed Abdullah actually get caught up by him and kind of stick with him into a corner to allow Ben Borman to come through and nab that victory. But again, he's fighting tooth and nail, and he's finding it extremely hard here to find a way through.
This is going to be, I was just going to say, this is going to be one of those last gasp manoeuvres at the end of the stint, isn't it? He's going to pitch his moment, get the lead, and then box straight away. He's trying to lull Ahmed Abdallah into a mistake here. He really doesn't want to have to make the overtake and come off the line if he doesn't have to. He wants Abdallah to crack under the pressure, and I don't really see Ahmed Abdallah doing that at any point. He's always looked very comfortable and very serene right from the start of the season, when of course he was in the Mercedes way back when. He's obviously changed mid-season. Adrian Rice putting Jason Whitehead under some pressure and trying to get rid of Risto Corpi behind him. So Adrian Rice in the Nissan still going fairly solid lap times from him so far, and looking very smooth at the moment around these S's as he tries to keep himself in the hunt. A brief yellow in sector 2, and there's one in sector 3 as well, so a couple of drivers obviously having a moment or two out there on the course, but it's only a brief one. But yeah, this is a fascinating battle as Ben Borman, I believe, is coming in for the pits.
As is Ahmed Abdullah as well. Actually, it looks to be Ahmed Abdullah is the only one to come into the pit lane. Ben Borman has decided to stay out. So it seems to be Ben Borman has been given the lead from Ahmed Abdullah, which is great for Ben Borman. However, he's going to have to come in at some point. Dan Kirby stays out. Magnus Dahlgren stays out. Ross Smith stays out as well here. As into the pit lane comes, that looks to be, well, that's the Sol Salva that's come in. That's Gilles Lalande that has brought his car into the pit lane as well. So now, as we said, this is sort of now the first pit stop window of 2 that we predict will happen in this 50-lap race here around Autopolis as part of the Virtual World Sports Car historic 1991 season. Of course, this is the final race of the season as well for the championship, as Paul Giaventa is in for the second time. Now, this must not be this is not a scheduled pit stop at all, so I have a feeling Paul might have an issue here, because it's the second time he's come in now what would be less than 10 laps between them, and there he is. So unfortunately not going away for him at all. Walter de Bruyn is in the pit lane as well. The pit lane now getting quite busy. Now the real question is, when is Ben Borman going to come in? He is 10.1 seconds up the road from Dan Kirby. More importantly, he is over 24 seconds ahead of his championship rival Ross Smith, but those 20 seconds are not the 20 points that he needs. Those are just the points, the seconds that are between him and his championship rival, and Ross Smith is currently scoring enough points to ensure that he is crowned champion at the end of this race. Dan Kirby is in the pit lane now for the first time here at Autopolis. And there is Ross Smith now running in 3rd position. When will he come into the pit lane? Will he follow Ben Borman? Will they have the same strategy as there is Paul Giaventa that's gone off again? And that is through sector 1 as well that he's gone off. So he's just come out the pit lane. And I have a feeling he may have more issues than we think he does, because of course he's already come into the pit lane twice. Once presumably would have been scheduled. The second one was certainly off schedule. So Mr. Corpi looking for a way past Jason Whitehead here. It's the battle for 5th position at the moment. It's Corpi in his Peugeot 905. Looking for a way through. Yellow in sector 1, and you could just see Paul Giaventa there facing the wrong way again. I wonder if he's struggling for grip as Stephen Miller is in the pit lane for the first time, down in 11th position. Dan Kirby now out of the pit lane. As John Mayer moves up, as does Tom Lane as well. There is John Mayer, of course, looking for a championship title here. Is John Mayer in the AM category. He is the current points leader, and his closest rival, Eric Moynier, not here today, is Magnus Dahlgren. No doubt the fastest man in the opening 10 laps of the race has kind of settled into a groove. Haven't spoken much about him recently. He is now into the pit lane for the first time as the 2 Lucky Strike Mazda racing cars run together. And of course, it's John Mayer and George Angelidis. There is Magnus Dahlgren, currently in the pit lane, getting a fresh set of tyres and a full tank of fuel. There's Jason Whitehead and Adrian Rice are also in the pit lane. Niall Bullion is out, as is Paul J. Venter is out of the race as well. So two DNFs in quick succession there. Pretty much thought that Paul J. Venter had a number of issues already, having that second unscheduled pit stop. And it appears to be that he is officially out of the race. Niall Bullion out of the race as well. And we're going to get a replay here now. I wonder if this is the reason as to why either of these two cars have DNF'd. And that is Venter that we're looking at right now. So this will be one of his spins that he unfortunately had. Well, not quite yet. And there he's pulled off to the side. Yeah, I think he's definitely got not an online issue. I think that's an external issue that he's had there. I think something may have come loose on his setup, because that certainly looked like an unforced error, at least in terms of his car. That looked to be something basically snapped and caused him to spin off, and unfortunately DNF here in the final race of the season of the Virtual World Sports Car historic 1991 season, where of course we're racing for a title here. This man, Ben Borman, is one of two championship protagonists here in our Purist category. The man that's currently in second position is his rival, the man that he needs to outscore. And again, what Ben Borman needs to do, if he wins this race, he needs Ross Smith to finish no higher than 7th position to ensure that Ben Borman walks away with the championship. Or he needs to finish second, and Ross Smith needs to not complete 50% of the race distance, but we're fast approaching that now. I think about 4 laps away from doing so.
So yeah, by my math, it's definitely only about 4 laps away. You're absolutely right. So it looks like Hall has come into the pits. So Hall is the latest one to come into the pits, as has Mayer. But Risto Corpi now finds himself in 3rd position as a result of the musical chairs. But yeah, it's looking more and more likely, isn't it, that Ross Smith doesn't really have to do anything here, as Borman now makes his pit stop. So Ross Smith coming in before Borman, as we watch Wouter de Bruin, who is somehow still circulating in a Porsche-shaped blob around the course. It must be handling a bit like one at the moment, the amount of incidents he's had. And that huge thwack into the pit wall exit on the incident a little bit earlier on, that must be really doing his handling no favours whatsoever. He's still plugging away there in behind Stephen Miller.
And Ross Smith decides to extend his pit window by an additional lap here over Ben Borman. Is this the strategy he needs to play it out all the way to the end here? As we fast approach the halfway point, he's going to make Ben Borman's championship hopeful here that much more difficult if he manages to go past the 50% mark. Because of course, no matter where he finishes, he will be crowned victorious here, as long as he finishes 7th or higher. And if Ben Borman is the race leader on the very last lap when the checkered flag waves, as Askelis now goes into 2nd position. There is Ben Borman. It's going to feel like an absolute eternity. Adrian Rice is in the pit lane as well. Now it looked to me that Adrian Rice had a slight issue actually on the previous lap going through sector 2. But then again, my timing screen is also doing its own thing. It's having its own pit stop currently at the moment. It's actually had multiple pit stops so far throughout the race. There's Risto Corpi in the pit lane, as is Adrian Rice. As we said, it looks like Ben Borman is out. So we'll wait for the pit stops now or the pit window to sort of shuffle its way through, and then we can see who is where. So Ross Smith currently sits 40.2 seconds ahead of the rest of the field. Fastest lap of the race goes to Magnus Dahlgren with a 1:31.231 Smith on that lap. And there indeed is Magnus Dahlgren, going fast again with a fresh set of boots on his car, as he did exactly from the get-go as well. He was the fastest man, and he was the one that was making the most moves and the headlines as well. As Risto Corpi still in the pit lane. That seemed quite long actually for Risto Corpi. He's down now to 9th position. He was 3rd before he came into the pit lane. Abdullah has now retaken 3rd overall. And again, Magnus Dahlgren looking for a way past Tom Lane. Now this is all too familiar for Tom Lane as well. Now, interesting enough, Tom Lane has not come into the pit lane. Again, I want to see how far he can go on this pit stop here. And I wonder actually if Ross Smith is doing the same thing. Now, I wonder if that's all strategy, what he was telling us before, that it's not possible to do it, trying to get in the minds of everybody else. Because he will be one of the last drivers to come into the pit lane. I have a feeling everybody else has come in except for Tom Lane and Ross Smith. They're the last two cars to come into the pit lane. No, we have another car. Ludwig Askinis has not come in either. So we've got three cars that have not come into the pit lane at all. And we're fast approaching the halfway point. We're 2 laps away from the halfway point as well. So in these next 2 laps, Ross Smith, Ludwig Askinis and Tom Lane are going to have to come in. And if they don't, they're going to go into the pit lane, comes the race leader as soon as we say that. So only 2 drivers left to come in. Ludwig Askinis, will he come in this time round? So we had a gap of over 40 seconds between himself and this man right here. Now it looks to me the pit stop takes around 1 minute 29 seconds, or 1 minute 30 actually to be more precise here. So that's not a gap, so he will lose the lead of the race, but will he lose out to Ben Borman, more importantly? Will he be able to get out in front of his championship rival? Let's wait and see. And if Ludwig Askinis comes in this time round, because of course, well, Ben Borman's come in to the pit lane already. He's probably got at least 3 to 4 laps on his tyres, so that means Ross Smith will have the freshest set of tyres, but he will have a heavier load of fuel on board. As Ludwig Askinis now takes the lead of the race. Here is Ben Borman working his way through sector 3. Ahmed Abdullah goes second, and it looks to be Ben Borman will go third. So still a while for Ross Smith to be in the pit lane as he leaves now. So he hasn't lost too much time. He's done a 1 minute 07 in the pit lane. That was a mighty fast one. So maybe the other pit stop times that we had written down were a bit slower than usual. But that's a very good pit stop from Ross Smith as well. As he said, 1 lap to go before we've successfully elapsed the half race distance. And with Ben Borman currently in third and Ross Smith in fifth, that means the Purist title goes to Ross Smith. If they were to finish exactly where they are at the halfway point, that is. But for the Lucky Strike Manchester team, they're going to have to be pushing a little bit more here. Because, of course, they need to finish 1-2. And they need the Nookie Monsters Peugeots to not finish the race at all. And one of them is this man right here, Ross Smith, who looks to be going the distance. Now, in the pro teams, we've got Storm Rider Racing, needs to outscore Rookie Monsters by 20 points to be crowned champions. And in the AM category, John Mayer needs to finish third or better, and he'll be champion in the AM category. And of course, he's running in second currently in the AM category, just behind Stephen Miller. Jason Whitehead circulating in 9th position. We have 2 drivers that have not come into pit lane, which are Ludwig Askinis and Tom Lane. As Ben Borman does the fastest lap of the race there with a 1:39.76 that time round. We are now officially, if my maths serves me correctly, on the halfway point lap. Now, as long as Ross Smith finishes this lap, he will be crowned champion. If that is correct. I think that is correct. So, he will need to, now Ben Borman will need to really push, and what he'll need as well is he'll need Magnus Dahlgren, Tom Lane and Brian Hall to push as much as possible as well. Now, the issue is here that both the race leader, Ludwig Askinis, and Tom Lane both need to come in and do their first pit stop. And that will put them down the order as well. And Ludwig Askinis actually will drop quite far down the order as well, as will Tom Lane, because they are quite close to other cars around them. As there is Ludwig Askinis, he's currently only 5.3 seconds clear of Ahmed Abdullah. He in turn of 2.4 seconds up the road and into the pit lane. Exactly at the halfway point comes Ludwig Askinis. And he will lose the race lead to Ahmed Abdullah, who comes across the line now to start the 27th lap, or actually the 26th lap of the race, to officially elapse half race distance. So the only thing now that stands in the way of Ben Borman being crowned champion is that he needs Ross Smith to finish no higher than 7th, and Ben Borman needs to lead this race here at the last lap, through the last corner and across the line for the last time. AJ Rice goes quick of all with a 1:39.54. When does Tom Lane come into the pit lane as well? Will he come in this time? I don't think he will. And he doesn't. Tom Lane decides to stay out for an additional lap. As we said, if there is one man out there that can do the entire race on just one pit stop on a track that will chew your tyres up right from the get-go, this man right here, Tom Lane, will be the one to do it. He'll be the one that does this entire race on a single pit stop. But it looks to be Ludwig Askenit's strategy as well, maybe a one-stop or a two, as he's done a pit lane time there of 1:21.4. So it looks to me he's put maximum amount of fuel on board to go all the way to the end. So I think we have two drivers that will be doing a one-stop strategy, two that will, and the rest of the field will be doing a two-stop strategy here. Ben Borman looking for a championship title here, but it is fading away as the laps go by. Dan Kirby sits in third, but Ross Smith sits in fourth position, and that's not where Ben Borman wants Ross Smith to be at all. He wants him to be in 8th position or lower. But that doesn't appear to be the case for him at all. Here's Risto Corpi, currently circulating, in 9th position at the moment, 2.1 seconds back. He's 14.4 seconds up the road from the previous race leader, Ludwig Askenis. Walter de Bruin circulating down in 11th position, already wrapped up a title for him. Had his fair share of issues though already. As here's Ahmed Abdullah. And that looks to be Stephen Miller just in front of him as well. He's coming up behind the 12th place car overall. Looking for a way through, but Stephen Miller's not going to make this easy for him as well. And Ben Borman, this is the battle for the lead as well, because Ben Borman is closed right up in as well. And the back marker is doing exactly what Ben Borman wants to do, and on the inside he goes. But can he keep the move? Yes, he can. Ahmed Abdullah fights back. As Tom Lane comes into the pit lane, and so does Walter de Bruin. So Tom Lane into the pit lane for the last time. Ahmed Abdullah goes wide as well, trying to retake the lead. Oh, and he's into the pit wall as well. Through the final corner, Ahmed Abdullah has hit the wall. And that will give second position to Dan Kirby. Here's a replay of the incident as well. So it all started with the back marker traffic. You see he loses it through the final corner. Unfortunately, too early, the gas spins it round into the wall of pit entry. The good news is he got going again, and he actually didn't lose the position out to Dan Kirby. However, for Ben Borman, he says thank you very much. This is exactly what I need and the way I needed it to be as well. However, now he needs Ross Smith to be overtaken by Magnus Dahlgren, who is getting quicker as the race is going on. Brian Hall, Jason White and Corpy as well to all go past Ross Smith. However, Ross Smith also going faster as well. He's starting to catch up to Dan Kirby. Ahmed Abdullah there, a very strong race, but unfortunately losing it through the final corner. Here is Ross Smith, looking not just for a title of his own. For the team here around Autopolis. It'll be a great way to end the race as well, with not one but two titles to bring home. And I think he may have to give his trophy as well away, because he did say to us that if Tom Lane can do the entire race on one pit stop, we'll give his trophy away to him. It means that Tom Lane will also need to finish on the podium as well, if he wants that to be the case. But, it's going to be quite tough actually for Tom Lane to do that, because he's down in 14th position at the moment and quite a ways back from the rest of the drivers in the pro category here around Autopolis. So a lot of work cut out for Tom Lane if he wants to receive a mysterious trophy at the end of the race. Abdullah will be absolutely frustrated with what happened there a few laps ago, and now he's only 0.5 of a second ahead of Dan Kirby. The gap was much larger, and now he's stuck in between two of the Lucky Strike Mazdas. Dan Kirby, and that would be not George Angelidis. I think that is, oh, it is George Angelidis that will be there with him. This is now the Porsche.
He'll be very frustrated, because of course this was the same situation he had the last couple of laps, where there was a back marker, he couldn't get around him, and then suddenly he was in the pit wall. Now he's through him quite cleanly this time.
Yeah, very unfortunate there for him as well, as he finally finds a way past one of the Mazdas. And that will put a nice gap between himself and Dan Kirby, but of course with the sister car there for the MAK for Dan Kirby, he'll let him through as quick as possible to ensure he's not impeding his battle there for the second step of the podium in the Purist category. Dan Kirby is released from the sister car and is in hot pursuit. Here's Risto Corpi. He's having a great battle here with Brian Hall for the time being. Looking for a strong points finish as well is Risto Corpi, currently inside the top 10, 0.7 of a second back from Brian Hall.
Well, not only has he been having a good tussle with Brian, but in fact he and Jason have been at each other the entire race, and they're working their way up the field as they have this competition. So really interesting driving from them.
Yeah, and you can just see that Jason Whitehead is just up the road as well. So he's managed to escape these two, but he's not managed to escape as much as he'd like to. And now that Risto Corpi has been released from the clutches of Brian Hall, he'll be in hot pursuit of Jason Whitehead once again. So no doubt we'll see another great battle between these two. 20 laps remaining officially now as Ben Borman comes across the line. 16.9 seconds ahead of Ahmed Abdullah. We've also been watching a battle that was brewing at the end of the field as well between Walter de Bruyn and Gilles Lalande, which is of course in the sole Sauber Mercedes C11. As close as 0.4 of a second between himself and Walter de Bruyn. Walter de Bruyn actually really struggling here this weekend. As one of the Nissans is on the inside there. Now, is that the Nissan of Jason Whitehead that's just gone through? I think it is, because that looks to be the Risto Corpi Peugeot behind him. Yes, it is. As Risto Corpi doesn't want this car to be here at all. He wants to get through as fast as possible and catch Jason Whitehead again. So we'll see if he can find a way through. And you could just see that the Mercedes, despite it having the speed, the straight line speed that it needs, is suffering quite a fair bit here. And you can see the amount of drivers that have swapped over from the Mercedes to the... oh, that's Gilles Lalande that's had an issue there. Now, was that contact with...
No, it was self-induced as it came through T1, and MAK Corp was able to miss him.
So it's great reaction time there from Corpi, who has completely missed the spinning Gilles Lalande as he continues to struggle with the Mercedes C11. Magnus Dahlgren slowing down here again, but still circulating inside the top 5 with his Jaguar XJR 14. And he's putting the pressure now on the back bumper of Ross Smith. Now, this is exactly what Ben Borman needs, but he needs another 3 cars behind Ben Borman, behind Magnus Dahlgren to do the same thing to Ross Smith. Now, Magnus Dahlgren has been very, very aggressive in this race. However, he's managed to keep all 4 tyres on the track as well. No bold manoeuvres from Magnus Dahlgren. They've been very rapid and aggressive indeed, especially on the opening laps of the race, and of course right after he came out of the pit stop as well. Very quick out the box, with a fresh set of boots on his car. Slightly hampered with the fuel load on board, but of course with now a lighter load of fuel, attacking once again the back bumper of Ross Smith. Now, of course, we said this is kind of good news for Ben Borman because Ross Smith will lose a position. However, he needs Ross Smith to finish 7th or lower. Actually, it's 8th or lower, come to think of it, actually, for Ben Borman to win. And of course, this is a win or lose situation for Ben Borman, no matter which way we look at it. If he wins the last race of the season, he will win the race overall, but of course, he won't win the championship, which is not the way he'd like to end his season, although he will be vice champion in the Purist category. Definitely not the way that he'd like it to be at all, though he'd prefer it if Ross Smith was a further couple of positions behind him, as Magnus Dahlgren keeps the pressure on the back bumper of Ross Smith, stays with him by around 0.5 of a second. George Angelidis, one of the 3 Lucky Strike Mazda Racing Mazda 787Bs we have in the field. Of course, the second one being driven by Dan Kirby, and another one being driven by John Mayer. George continues on, soldiers on here, but of course, unfortunately, the team's championship title out of reach now because they needed that all-important 1-2 finish, and of course they needed Ross Smith and the Nookie Monsters to not finish the race at all. But unfortunately, it appears there is not enough in the bag for the Lucky Strike Mazda Racing team to ensure the Purist Team's championship, although a hard-fought season nonetheless. Unfortunately, will not go down to the very last lap of the race. So John Mayer looking for a way past Tom Lane. Tom Lane down in 13th position. Said on this very, very interesting strategy. We now wind into the final stages of the race here, the final third of the race as well, coming up soon. Ben Borman continues to extend his lead now by 20.3 seconds to the good of Ahmed Abdullah, who's being hounded now by Dan Kirby. The gap between them is a second separating the two of them. And that battle is happening just ahead of these two here, Magnus Dahlgren and Ross Smith, who are still vying for 4th position. Here is Dan Kirby, as you said, battling at the moment now what is now 2nd position. A couple of laps ago that gap was a lot larger than it is now. It was well over a second. As into the pit lane comes Ross Smith. Interesting there that he's come in much earlier than anticipated. And this of course is strategy, because now he'll top his car up completely full of fuel and then go all out the last 16 laps of the race here. Of course, he will be on older tyres, though, in comparison to the rest of the team. But will he be still inside the top 7 is where it needs to be. So Jason Whitehead. Oh, that's actually quite a quick stop there, actually, for Ross Smith, because he's been in and out. So it seems to be a splash and dash, although maybe a bit more than just a splash. On not as much fuel as we first anticipated here, so I think in the final stages of the race here he's going to have to be a little bit more conservative, because he'll have to treat that as his 2nd pit stop before the end of the race here. So Ben Borman, as you said, continues to lead by 20.1 seconds to the good, but he doesn't have enough cars in between himself and Ross Smith to be crowned champion, so this would just be for an outright victory here. He'll end the season somewhat on a high with another victory. However, the championship may not be his. We still do have enough time on the clock for it to go the other way. However, with the pace that Ross Smith has, it appears Ross Smith could be champion from his teammate, Nookie Monsters Peugeot 905, Ben Borman. As Ahmed Abdullah is in the pit lane from 4th overall, sorry, 3rd overall actually, because he was just ahead of Magnus Dahlgren, wasn't he? And Dan Kirby, so he came in from 2nd, so he's dropped down to 4th. Ross Smith goes through into 4th place. But of course it won't all be down for the championship for Ben Borman. Of course he will be walking away as the team's champion as well in the Purist category with his teammate. It's been a hard fought championship fight with his teammate as well. It's never easy when you have to go down to the final race of the season with your teammates, because of course you want to ensure a good strong points finish for both yourself and your teammates. Of course when a championship's on the line, it will be you who would be preferable to be the champion rather than your teammates. So of course make things ever so slightly more difficult as Risto Corpi now once again the back bumper of Jason Whited, looking for a way through. He's been trying to do actually for some time. Of course these two were battling not too long ago. Seems to be the battle has now restarted between these two as well. It's been a great battle with these two as well throughout the race, as has a number of other drivers as well. Risto Corpi has really come into this battle swinging, putting on some fantastic battles all over.
And just ahead of them is the other battle that's going on, is Lane and De Bruyn. So you've got two pairs of drivers battling themselves while the fasters are trying to get through the slower.
This is the case as well, because there is Walter De Bruyn just in front. You can see how much Jason Whited is desperately trying to stay ahead of Risto Corpi. And there he's on the inside. Walter De Bruyn lets him through. Sort of giving enough room to his fellow drivers from the first half of the race, where unfortunately he hit the wall and then lets the Risto Corpi car through as well. So thank you very much. I have a great battle on my hands here, and there's Tom Lane though. Of course now this puts Walter De Bruyn in a bit of a deficit as well, because of course he was in his own battle for 13th overall, as he allows the two cars faster to go through, which is the right thing to do, because of course they're in a battle of their own as well. They'll let the faster car through. His own battle on the line. So let the two cars through. So there is Tom Lane, as you said. One of the drivers that will be doing this race, no doubt, on a one-stop strategy. It's a fast approach, 10 laps remaining in this final race of the championship. The Virtual World Sports Car historic 1991 season. Risto Corpi in 7th, looking to end the season on a high as well here. He's just behind Brian Hall. The two of them here, 9.3 seconds adrift from Jason Whited. In turn is 8.9 seconds back from Ross Smith. With Ben Borman out in front by 15.7 seconds now of Dan Kirby. And Dan Kirby is catching now. I'd like to give you the exact time, but it seems to me my timing sheet does not want to work, as it keeps taking a pit stop of his own, as Gilles Hollande is in the pit stop once again, in the pit lane again. And it's to be for the 4th time. John Mayer is in the pit lane as well, currently sitting in 2nd overall in the AM category. Of course, that's good enough for him. Oh, Ahmed Abdullah has a problem. Ahmed Abdullah has gone off in sector 3. Now, he's come to a complete stop as well. So I wonder if he's had an issue again externally. Here's a replay of exactly what happened for Ahmed Abdullah. Now, is there another party involved, or did he just do it by himself? No, it seemed to be just did it by himself. Now, with all the dust that's kicked up, could have thought maybe it's an engine failure, but that doesn't appear to be the case. It just seems to be he's had an issue, and I have a feeling, again, it is an external issue rather than an internal issue or online issue, shall we say. So Corpi heavy into the braking zone there, almost misses the braking area as well, trying to find a way past Brian Hall. Into the runoff area as well, as Dan Kirby now into the pit lane, and Magnus Dahlgren into 2nd position overall. Is there a win here in store for Magnus Dahlgren in the Me Racing Jaguar XJR 14? What can he do at the end of the race here? He's been very quick, a bit too quick sometimes. He's losing some ground here to Ben Borman. Ben Borman will of course have to come into the pit lane as well at some point to do his 2nd and final pit stop. A very quick pit stop as well for Dan Kirby, so pretty much a splash and dash again for Dan Kirby is currently circling inside the top 5 now. Interesting enough, where's Ross Smith? Well, he's still 3rd at the moment, so he's still inside the top 5. There he is, circulating behind Stephen Miller. So, yellow in sector 2. Now, who's had an issue there? Brief yellow flag. To De Bruyne in 14th. He's back up to the back bumper now of Tom Lane. And will try and find a way through. Once again, here's Risto Corpi. He's still not found a way through Brian Hall. Brian making it very, very difficult to pass here for Risto Corpi. For Risto Corpi. He's just trying to get around the outside. This is what he tried to do on the previous lap and almost outbraked himself. Trying to get the cut back here. They're going to go side by side down the hill here at Autopolis. Unfortunately, not close enough to make a move for Risto. He's going to try again. He picks up the toe. Tries to pull up alongside him again. Trying to go around the long way round. Almost gets the inside line there, but unfortunately, again, Brian Hall shuts the door on him. And keeps Risto Corpi at bay. Into the pit lane comes Magnus Dahlgren. Gives second position to Ross Smith, and it's a Nookie Monsters 1-2, which is exactly what the team needs. Jason Whitehead is in the pit lane as well. There he is in his Nissan. Goes right past the Jaguar XJR14 into the pit lane as well as Stephen Miller. They're all for the second time here. So I presume quick pit stops as well for both Jason Whitehead and Magnus Dahlgren. Actually, it seems to be Magnus Dahlgren's going to stay in the pit lane for quite some time. I don't think he needs to take this much fuel unless he's going to go all out now in the last part of the race here. It's 11 laps to go. Risto Corpi still hasn't found a way past Brian Hall. This, of course, now is the battle now for 4th position. As that kind of dropped down to 7th position overall. Magnus Dahlgren comes out in 8th. Adrian Rice is 9th. Jason Whitehead is 10th. He's currently in the pit lane. It's just Stephen Miller in the pit lane as well. Interesting to see how quick Dan Kirby was in and out the pit lane. It's just 36 seconds, so he was in and out quite fast there. He said splash and dash here. Magnus Dahlgren was in the pit lane for quite a significant amount of time as well, so that will put him as a deficit. George Angelidis is in the pit lane. Unfortunately for the Lucky Strike Mazda team, it will not be the victory that they want in the Purist category. It will go the way of the Nookie Monsters, who are currently 1-2 at the moment.
It's going to be interesting to see how Jason Whitehead is going to recover his placing and get back up to Risto Corpi. It looks like he took tires, which is rather surprising. So he's hoping that, I'm sure that with a lighter car and good tires, he's going to make his way quickly through the pack.
Thank you, Matthew, there for the update. 10 laps to go now officially here in the final race of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, the historic 1991 championship. Final 10 laps to go, and this is where the story ends for both Ben Borman and Ross Smith. Of course, Ross Smith looking for a title, as is Ben Borman. For Ben Borman, he needed one of two things to happen. One of them was for Ross Smith to finish or fail to finish the 50% race distance at the beginning, which has not happened. The only thing he could do now for Ben Borman to win is to win the race outright and have Ross Smith finish 7th or worse. Actually, 8th or worse than the hill. That means Ben Borman will be the champion. However, it looks to be quite a tough ask because Adrian Rice is in the pit lane. In the Purist teams, Lucky Strike Mazdas needed that 1-2 to be crowned champion. However, the team of Nookie Monsters, the two Peugeots, are currently running 1-2 and we've elapsed successfully the 50% race distance. So it looks to be that Nookie Monsters will walk away with 2 titles here at the end of the day, one for the drivers and one for the teams. Now, in the pro category, the drivers has already been sorted out by Walter de Bruyn, but the teams need to be sorted out in that category because Storm Rider Racing needs to outscore Rookie Monsters by 20 points to be crowned champion as Brian Hall comes into the pit lane. And in the AM category, we need to crown the AM drivers as John Mayer needs to finish 3rd or better in class to be champion. And he's currently circulating in 2nd, as there's only 3 drivers in the AM category: Stephen Miller, John Mayer, and Paul Henrique. And Henrique unfortunately had the issue, and off goes. Who was that just went off?
That was Gilles Lalonde.
It was Gilles Lalonde because that was the Sauber, wasn't it? That's gone off, and the Sauber really struggling, as is Gilles Lalonde as well, is having the issue. A major issue throughout this race here, unfortunately all the way down in 16th position. Still in the race though, as George Angelidis is in the pit lane for a mighty long time by the looks of it on our screen. It's showing that he's been in the pit lane for at least 3 minutes. Now, I would presume he has then some sort of technical issue for him to be in the pit lane for that long. As Adrian Rice looking for a way past one of the Mazda 787Bs. As Magnus Dahlgren on the move again, trying to work his way back up the order. Right behind Ahmed Abdullah as well, so this is the battle now for 6th position on track between Ahmed Abdullah and Magnus Dahlgren. 2/10 of a second as Magnus Dahlgren looking around the outside. Of course, that is the longer way around, and unfortunately loses time to Ahmed Abdullah. But he tried, that's what counts. And as we just saw, George Angelidis, you could just see his car still in the pit lane, so very, very long pit stop here for George Angelidis. And that is unfortunate. Oh no, he's actually circulating, so who was that was showing the pit lane, I wonder? And that's the safety car that we saw there. So the timing screen just needs to catch up because George Angelidis is circulating. So I do apologise there for the George Angelidis fan. He's still out there running in 13th because I was going to say, hey, he's not lost any position to Stephen Miller or John Mayer, because if he was still in the pit lane he would have lost those places, wouldn't he? And he would have lost out to Gilles Lalonde as well. But he's still in it. Behind the wheel of the Lucky Strike Mazda Racing 787B, but unfortunately in the Purist category they'll have to walk away as vice champions here in the Virtual World Sports Cup historic 1991 season. Of course, we'll get ready for an all-new season as well next year here in the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, not just for the historics, but for the hypercar and GT field as well. Of course, we'll have next week the grand finale for that category as well, as Ben Borman from the race lead comes into the pit lane. Now, to presume that he's so close here to the end of the race, he'll only get the fuel that he needs. So this will be a splash and dash again for him. So look for around a 36 to 40 second pit stop here for Ben Borman. And presumably put on new tyres, because of course that would delay him too much. As we said, Ross Smith has already been in and out of the pit lane. It's closing and closing. It looks to be Ben Borman's actually going in the pit lane longer than we predicted here. So it looks like he'll be getting tyres and fuel, and he's gone out now. So I think he's just got fuel for this final pit stop. That was a 44-second pit stop as well. And he's only 20.2 seconds up the road from Ross Smith. 36.9 seconds. It's not the gap between himself and Dan Kermit. It still is showing his pit stop time there. But there is Ross Smith, the closing stage of the race, looking to wrap up a championship here. But of course, he can't breathe that easy. He can't take it too easy either. As Risto Corpi is in the pit lane now. That will drop him out of the top 5, as he should drop behind Askinis at least. And because Magnus Dahlgren is only 1.2 seconds back, he will lose. He'll go down to 6th position. Actually, Magnus Dahlgren found a way past Ahmed Abdullah, and that's why he's up in a 6th position now. There is Magnus Dahlgren. now fighting with Ascanis for that position. As still Risto Corp is in the pit lane. Actually, I think he looks like he may have come out, actually. I think he may have come out just in front of this battle. Risto Corp in front? No, that's one of the Mazdas. No, there he is. He's still actually in the pit lane, so this will be quite a long one for him as well. As he's released now. And off he goes, and look who it is. It's his old rival, Jason Whited, and he just comes out in front of Jason Whited. Indeed he does. And Jason Whited thought, that's it. He's gone. He's no longer going to bother me anymore. Well, Risto Corpi said, well, the fight's not over just yet. You're going to have to fight tooth and nail if you want to stay ahead of me. As they lean on each other.
Jason really lost out in the pit strategy there, because he was a good 10 seconds down the road, and then the pit cycle saw that just evaporate.
So the strategy not playing well in the hands of Jason Whited at all. And he's having to deal with Risto Corpi again here at Autopolis.
However, he has managed to shoulder his way back into the lead of that pair, so he's working it pretty hard.
Right behind them is Ben Borman as well, by the looks of it. So the race leader just behind this great battle that we're having. And off in the background you saw Gilles Lalande again in his Mercedes Sauber. Or Sauber Mercedes, excuse me, the C11. So unfortunately, more issues for Gilles Lalande as we're now into the final 5 laps of the race here of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship. Ross Smith looking to wrap up the title in style with a second place finish in the course for the Nookie Monsters. It could be a 1-2 if all goes to plan now. Look at Ascanis. Started on the second row of the grid, looking for a strong points finish here. Here's Adrian Rice, all over the back of Tom Lane. Tom Lane, I think one of the only 2 drivers to do this on 1 pit stop. I think Ludwig Ascanis will be the other driver to do this on only 1 pit stop as well. So we thought it would be difficult. We knew it would be difficult, but we knew it would be possible to do this race with just 1 pit stop. And it seems to be, well, not 1, but 2 drivers will actually do it on 1 pit stop as well. I wonder if we could get a word with them as well on their thoughts on the strategy and if they thought it would actually work out or if it was just a massive gamble for both of them. As Adrian Rice finds the inside and contact between Adrian Rice there and Tom Lane. Seemed to be Adrian Rice did have the quicker of the 2 cars there through the final corner, the first corner there. Tom Lane fought back and they collided on the exit of the very first corner here on lap number 47. 51, or should we say 46 of 50. Of course, that extra 1 lap is the formation lap that counted here. Zach Bernardella now into the top 5. Found a way past Ludwig Ascanis. Bumps Ascanis now down to 6th position overall outside of the top 5. But the good news is for Ascanis is that he's still running in second in the pro category. We should really have a look at the leaders in their respective categories as well, because in the Purist category it's Ben Borman from Ross Smith to Dan Kirby. In the pro category it is Magnus Dahlgren from Ludwig Ascanis and Brian Hall. And then in the AM category it's Stephen Miller from John Mayer and Philippe Henrique, but unfortunately Henrique is out of the race. Unfortunately not be on the podium because he's not completed 50% of the race either. There is the race leader as well in the AM category. Is that John Mayer behind him? No, it's not. It just is conveniently another Mazda 787B. Now that's either George Angelidis or Dan Kirby, because this is John Mayer. Obviously John Mayer has a slightly different Lucky Strike livery because he's got the blue rear spoiler. I think that's the signifier that is in the AM category, where I think George Angelidis and Dan Kirby both have red rear spoilers. Here is George Angelidis, so it was Dan Kirby that was mixing it up there with Stephen Miller. spook him a little bit there to have a 787B behind him. There is Tom Lane and Adrian Rice, the two that are battling for 10th position. Of course, this is for a finish inside of the top 10 for both drivers here. Great way to end the season for both of them if they can finish inside the top 10, but it seems to be only one of them will finish inside the top 10. Which one it will be, though? We'll have to wait and find out. Now, looking at the sharp end of the field, Ben Borman appears to be losing time to Ross Smith. Granted, we only have 2 laps to go, as we're on lap number 48 of 50. It does say 49 to 51 on the screen, but that's if you just joined us for the last 2 laps of the race. 1, where have you been? And 2, the final lap, or the extra lap that you see, is the formation lap that we had at the beginning, because of course in R Factor 2 it counts it as an actual lap. So we're racing here for 50 laps, but it shows 51 laps. We're currently on lap 48 of 50. And this man right here, Ben Borman, who's looking for a title overall in the Purist category, unfortunately will not be walking away with one unless on this lap something major happens to the man that sat behind him. His teammate Ross Smith comes into this race the points leader, but in the final race there is exactly enough points for Ben Borman to be crowned champion if Ross Smith finishes 7th, no higher than 7th. But it appears for Ross Smith, not a foot wrong. Everything has gone according to plan. The pit stops on track. He hasn't got caught up in any battles. He's had no issues with any tyres anywhere off track. He's had no inquiries from the stewards, nothing. Everything has gone exactly according to plan for Ross Smith as we now start the penultimate lap here. For Ben Borman. 17.2 seconds up the road from his teammate Ross Smith, but unfortunately he said not enough between himself and his teammates to be crowned victorious. Here is Risto Corpi battling still with Jason Whitehead. These two have been locked in battle all over the place, and even when we thought it wouldn't happen, as they two come together, these two have had a few close encounters. The first kind here. Using the first kind, that would be multiple kinds now, because that's the multiple time that's happened at the exact corner as well. And that seems to be exactly where Risto Corpi would like to find a way through, but he just can't do it. I think by the end of the race he'd like to find a way through past somebody at that point and not have to brake as late as he can and probably use the runoff area. So race leader should be starting the last lap of the race shortly. Where's Ben Borman at the moment? Was that him at the tail end of our shot? As Risto Corpi runs wide. And indeed it was Ben Borman in the background, because here he is starting the final lap of the race. He's got 15 seconds to the good between himself and his championship rival Ross Smith. 19 corners when he came across the line, sat between himself and a fantastic way to end the season, ending on a high with a victory. He'll of course end it on a high as well with the championship in the teams category for the Purists. However, there will not be an overall title for Ben Borman unless something on this last lap happens to Ross Smith, but as we said, it doesn't seem to be the case at all. Ross Smith sits 10.6 seconds adrift so far. Brian Hall sitting in 8th position, still keeping Risto Corpi at bay. But for Ben Borman, now I wonder if he's slowing down here to allow Ross Smith to catch up. They can have that all-important photo finish at the end. Got to be careful though. Or is this fuel saving? Ben Borman did come in slightly later. He was in the pit lane for longer though compared to Ross Smith. I don't think it could be a fuel issue. It's definitely not needing to save any fuel whatsoever. So it might just be the photo finish that they want for the team here. Because, of course, the Nookie Monsters, when they come across the line, 1-2, they will be the champions in the Purist category. We work our way through Sector 3 here for the final time. There is Ross Smith, and I do believe, indeed, it is for the photo finish. As through the final corner, there the two come. Ben Borman on the left-hand side, Ross Smith on the right-hand side. Ben Borman flashes the lights. He'll win the final race of the VWSC historic 1991 season, but the man on the right who's flashing his headlights will walk away the champion in the Purist category. And a well-deserved one as well. Played his cards right absolutely to perfection, and that means at the line we will have two drivers that did this entire race on one pit stop. Ludwig Askinis and Tom Lane both did this race on one pit stop, and for Ludwig Askinis, he managed to finish inside the top three and will be on the podium as things get dicey between Walter de Bruyn and Ahmed Abdullah. What a race from this man right here. He put it third on the starting line here. He tumbled down, did the entire race on one pit stop, and he managed to walk away with second overall in the pro category. What an amazing drive and strategy there from Ludwig Askinis. Fantastic stuff as Risto Corpy there across the line in 8th position. Brian Hall will come across the line in 9th. Whew. And that is a wrap for the season. The season has officially come to an end here in the Virtual World Sports Car Historic 1991 season. But before we go, let's see if we can have a quick word with the drivers, the winners.
I'll see if I can get Ben in here now. And follow him up with Ross if you like. And then the other two winners as well.
That sounds absolutely perfect, Matthew. Thank you so much. So we'll talk to the winner overall. We'll talk to the champion in the Purist category as well. And of course, they will be both very delighted to know that they are the team's champion as well in the Purist category. And what a fantastic way to end the season as well here in the Virtual World Sports Car Historic. But it's not the end of the championship as a whole here for the Virtual World Sports Car Championship, because of course next week we'll be going to Bahrain for the very last race of the season. And of course, there will be crowning a champion in both Hypercar and GT in their respective categories as well, because it's got Hypercar, Hypercar Am, GT and GT Am. So 4 more champions will be crowned. Today they will crown at least 2 champions, because John Mayer, of course, with his second place finish in class, he will walk away with the title in the Am category, finishing behind Stephen Miller, so he'll be delighted to hear that news as well. As we wait now for all of the respective winners in each category to join us in the booth, so we can get their final thoughts and maybe some strategy talk as well, because I see Ben Borman, Stephen Miller, Ross Smith are all in the waiting room, and let's see who we'll bring in first. We'll bring in the champion, and we'll bring in his teammate as well. But let's talk to Ben Borman first, because Ben Borman, you walked away with a victory.
Did I?
A bittersweet victory, though.
No. Absolutely. That has been what we've been aiming to do all season, and it hasn't happened. And we nailed it today. That was the plan,
perfect,
and we hit
perfect.
it.
Yep.
And it's been a whole year of trying to do that.
Still think, though, I can kind of sense it in your voice that you could have been champion, but Ross Smith didn't put a foot wrong. He dropped down at the beginning. He sort of floated around inside the top 10, but then all of a sudden it just came to him. The strategy really played off for him, and unfortunately for you, Ben, it was just out of your reach.
I am absolutely delighted. I would have been delighted if Ross had come through on the line. It's been a brilliant team experience.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
Of course, the two of you will walk away the champions as well.
yeah.
That was that was, as you said, that was the about as perfect as you could make it in terms of strategy and development on the car. Ben did an excellent job all season long in developing the very, very tricky setups to make this thing actually work. Because as you saw, there are not many Peugeots out in the field, and there's a reason for that. It's a extremely difficult car to tune to your liking, and he I don't know if he gave it massages like Wagyu beef, or if he just cuddled it at night or something, but he made it work, and it's just an excellent time.
It's an absolute weapon for places you can't overtake. It knocks the spots off all of the other cars where you can't get past them.
Congratulations to the two of you, and a well-deserved victory for the Nookie Monsters there. Of course, we'll see you back next season, most likely, with maybe another car, maybe not the Peugeot, but something else. But, of course, Ross Smith, of course, you are champion. It came all the way down there to the very last race, and it could have gone wrong for you. It could have, but it seemed to be everything played out exactly the way you wanted it to.
Yeah, it was all strategy, and like you said, Ben should have had the championship if not for a myriad of technical difficulties throughout the season. But we at least achieved our goal of doing the 1-2 and making it work on strategy, and that was extremely satisfying.
Two very humble champion and vice champion there. Don't think it may have fared a bit different if they maybe weren't teammates, but both very, very humble there, the two of them. So thank you so much, guys, and congratulations to the both of you as well for your well-deserved overall victory in teams, and of course for Ross, your championship hunt there in the Purist category. Well-deserved. Now we'll see if we can bring in Stephen Miller, the winner of the AM category.
Thank you, Chris.
And Stephen joins us now. A hard-fought victory, Stephen, for you in the GTM. I know not a lot of competition, but you did have John Mayer, who, of course, has been crowned champion, breathing down your neck there towards the end of the race there. But a well-deserved victory nonetheless, Stephen.
Thank you. He was pushing me hard at the end there. I thought he still had to stop for fuel, but he must have stopped way earlier.
Strategy was a very interesting one here. I know Ross and I were speaking about it before that we could have done one pit stop, at least for some of the drivers. I know two did do one pit stop there, and then a few other drivers kind of changed their strategy up that we thought there. Do you think you could have done it on a different strategy there, or do you think the strategy you had played out exactly how you wanted it to?
It played out exactly how I wanted it to, because I tried a different strategy in the MNRL race on Tuesday night, and it didn't work. The two, John and George, both passed me, but I'm not racing with George, so I wasn't really worried about him in either race.
Right, thank you so much, Stephen, for talking to us. Let's see if we can get John Mayer now in the booth. Of course, the winner in GTAM, sorry, not GTAM, in the AM category, excuse me. All he needed to do was finish third or better with three drivers in the AM category. He, of course, finishes second overall, and that means a championship is being taken home by John Mayer.
And we've got John ready in the waiting room.
Perfect timing, to say the least. We'll see if we can bring Walter De Bruyn in as well. It'd be great to speak to Ludwig Askenis as well. But John Mayer, a championship here for you in the AM category. Talk us through that there in the last race. I know it may have felt easy for you, but again, it could have been lost quite easily as well, because you needed to finish third or better. But second, you've got to be happy with that.
Oh, yeah, I was. Thank you. My main competition didn't show up today. So all I had to do was finish the race.
I think that's, of course, an added bonus, isn't it? Because that's what we thought as well when we come into the race. We looked at the point standings and realised that Eric Moynier was not here. So it makes your life, it made your job today a little easier. But, of course, you were fighting hard for the victory there as well with Stephen Miller towards the end. Did everything go according to plan, or do you think something could have changed if you switched up the strategy ever so slightly?
No, it went the way I planned, and I just didn't have the speed today. And this track doesn't suit my style of driving, so I was slow compared to Kirby.
Well,
Same car, and he's a lot faster.
Well, John, thank you so much for talking to us. And again, congratulations on your overall victory in the AM category. Now, let's see if we can get Walter de Bruin in. Of course, the champion in the pro category is Walter de Bruin. Unfortunately for Walter, it didn't go as planned at certain parts of the race there. However, you came into the race as the champion. So the race was a lot easier than you might have expected to do, but some things just didn't go your way, did it?
Yeah, that's true. Well, actually, I had double duty today, so it's another event that I also needed to drive in and practice for, of course. So it's a little less time to work on the setup and get to know the track, and I think that showed in the race. But still, yeah, it's great to do just enough to get the team championship as well.
But yes, congratulations then on both titles for the team. And of course, you already wrapped up the title there for the pro category. So I think that brings an end to the Virtual World Sports Car Championship for the 1991 Historics. We'll be back next week, though, for the grand finale of the Virtual World Sports Car the 2022 season. We'll be crowning champions in Hypercar and GT. So that will be held at Bahrain. Stay tuned and make sure that you don't miss the final race of the Virtual World Sports Car Championship season.